Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to take on a Shakespeare reel. It's the Shakespeare Alpha. It's very popular as an entry level reel. It's part of the Pure Fishing lineup, which has Shakespeare and Abu and Mitchell and Penn. This reel's been around a long time. We have a question that came in from a viewer regarding the anti-reverse system on this one. So we're going to take this apart. I'll show you how it's made, how to tune it up, and if you're following along with me, you'll see the anti-reverse piece as well. So if you have one, that's great. If not, if you're thinking of buying one, these typically ran between $20 and $30 to purchase one of these. A lot of times you find these in a combination with a rod. And this one holds 240 yards of 12-pound test. It's a single ball bearing reel. So let's get started. First thing we want to do is take off the handle. This is a handle that is a screw-on handle as opposed to a through handle, so we're just going to back this off. This one was set up for a right-handed retrieve. It can be alternated by removing this cap and putting it on the other side if you prefer to turn with your left hand. You'll notice a couple of things. Since I said hand, I have a glove on my hand. That's to protect me from the dirt and grease and grime of a particular fishing reels. I don't like to get that on there if I don't need to, so I don't. I wear the glove. You'll also notice in the background here is a parts tray. It's the bottom of a milk jug, and I use that to hold all of the parts that I take off of the reel so that when it comes time to reinstall, I know where those parts are. The last thing I'll say, I always recommend folks to take pictures of the reel as they take it apart, especially if you're just doing this for the first time. I'm taking pictures by way of a video, but you can take pictures on a cell phone camera, a digital camera, or any other device that you have that can capture the moment at certain critical junctures so that if you get stuck along the way, you can go back and you can find the way that it was set up or the sequence that you took it out and so on. This reel came to me as part of a flea market purchase. You saw my video on that earlier. And we're just going to tune it up, clean it up, and see if we can't put this back into circulation. That's the whole idea of giving the things a second chance. I take the side plate screws out. I put them all on my workbench to make sure that they're all the same size. If they're not the same size, I note the location of one that's either longer and shorter. In this case, the 4 side plate screws are all the same size. You can then lift the casing out, and this reel looks to be very clean, hardly used, but lacking any kind of lubrication. There's some dried lubrication down here. So we're going to go ahead and take this apart, and you'll see how it's made. And it's a traditional design here. We're going to start by removing the screw that's in the crosswind block. That makes the axle shaft go up and down, or translates, if you will, to the spool going up and down. And in order to get that off, you need to take the screw out, and then you can pull the axle shaft up. And as part of a cleaning, you always want to remove that. Once you do that, then you can take the main gear off, and you'll notice sitting on the main gear is a brass bushing or some kind of alloy bushing as opposed to a bearing. We should be able to pull that off now. We would, but the crosswind block just got in the way here. Let's get the crosswind block out. Now we can take the main gear out, and we can take the crosswind gear out. And as I mentioned, this reel is almost too clean. There's hardly any lubrication on it at all. We're going to take these. I just have a little bit of cleaning to do here, so let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to take a cotton swab, clean the old grease out of the channel as well as the exterior. Put that in. Here's your second bushing on this side, and again, not much here. So this reel is going to hum when I get some grease back on it. It was a little sluggish, but we're finding out a lot of times that the cause of it being sluggish is just dried or no grease. So we have 2 bushings on the shafts and a what I call a pot metal gear. I'm not quite sure what the alloy is there, but we're going to get over here now, and we're going to take off the rotor. The rotor holds the anti-reverse assembly and the main shaft. our main gear. That's probably where we'll find the one ball bearing. I'm going to unscrew this. This is a normal pattern where counterclockwise takes the nut off. We also have a little hold fast here. I wanted to get out of there. And then we can pull the rotor. There's a little bit of some old grease on there, so we'll get rid of that. Underneath, we're going to check to make sure it's clean. And this has the old ridge system. This is not an instant anti-reverse. It has an old ridge system where the anti-reverse is going to come in and come out based on the workings. You'll see there's an eccentric here, and Tony, to your point, how this is set up, you have the eccentric, you have the tab that sits into the fork on the anti-reverse dog. As you're cranking, it's going to pull that in and away from the ridges on the rotor, and then as you back off or stop, it's going to push it out. And that's the way that the anti-reverse functions. So the next step then is to take this assembly off so we can get to that bearing. Notice this is a good time to take a picture if you haven't done so. We're going to pull the anti-reverse dog. There's a clip here. Now, if you want to save a minute and don't want to do everything, you don't have to do what we're going to do here. But I have a question from the viewers, so we're going to go ahead and do all of this. But if you simply want to put a drop of oil onto the shaft, you'll be okay with that in a tune-up. I'm just trying to remove this E-clip here. Never easy. There you go. I'm trying to prevent it from shooting. This is the E-clip. Looks like the letter E. Put that into my parts tray. I'm going to pull this anti-reverse piece off. Noting the orientation, which way is up, that's up. And I can take the dog off. I'm just going to lay these here because we're going to come back and do this in just a moment. Now, I should be able to get this assembly off without taking the spring off of this. But if you've taken it off and you're wondering how it goes back, there's a little tab that sits in here. And then the other part of the spring goes underneath. So that in order to set this, you're going to have to right this up, get it through the hole, threaded, and then come back and put it in there. But I think this little collar stops short, and I should be able to get that collar off without taking that throw from the override off. So this does not have there you go. It has I was right. It has does not have an anti-reverse clutch system. It simply has this older style. Here's our gear assembly. We want to pull that out, and again, totally dry. So that's the key here. If you had a bearing that was squeaking or squalling or anything like that, this is your chance how you would take it off. And as I mentioned, if you're just doing a normal assembly to this, just a shot of real oil on there, and I'm using Real X here, is plenty. And then we're just going to put some grease on the bottom of the pinion gear here, give it a nice coat of grease. That's what this reel is missing at the moment. And then we can just simply reinstall. So I'm going to grab the assembly, I'm going to put that back in, I'm going to push the bearing down. The sleeve goes next. Just line up the holes. And we can grab those two small screws. We'll get that collar on. That's going to hold it, because if you didn't have the hold down on this pinion gear, when you went to put the rotor on, it would pull it right off. So that collar's very important to the assembly of this reel. Okay, just a little bit of grease onto that post there that's going to run that anti-reverse dog. The anti-reverse dog comes in. Make sure you have that swing in the proper position. And then go grab that E-clip. And I like to put this on with a needle nose pliers. I like to set the two teeth in the groove. And just like that, we've got that. And just make sure it's flowing easily. And then remember the orientation on this one. It goes over the pinion gear and it sits in the groove here. And again, as you're reeling, it's pulling it in. As you relax it, it's going to go back out. Okay. Now we're going to load up the rotor. We're going to finish that top end. We're going to put that nut back on. You want to hand tighten that first. Give it a spin. Make sure that it's stopping on the way back so that the anti-reverse is working. We have an anti-reverse override switch. Unfortunately on this one it's broken. It can still be tripped, but the lever's there. That'll let you go in both directions. Push it back. There you go. Alright, that's everything you need to do on the top end of the reel except for installing that little tie down. So let's go grab the tie down. Make sure you have that open space where you can put the screw in. Grab the little tie down screw. Now I have a magnetic tip screwdriver, so that's telling me these screws that I'm putting in are steel, not stainless. And we can go below then. And we saw the same thing here, that these pieces were dry. I'm going to just pull these bearings out, the bushings out. I'm going to grab my grease and make sure I get a little bit on the shafts of each of those. Also want to get grease onto the small gear that's turning the crosswind gear. I'm checking to make sure that I don't have any broken teeth in here. This is a relatively new reel. It's largely not been used. So looks like the grease has just evaporated what grease they put on there. So this is plenty and it's all in good condition. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall that then. Oops. I'll put that crosswind gear in first. Again, very dry here. So let's put a little bit on that. You don't need much. This is sliding on the plastic case on the rim, so that's where you want that. A little bit of grease inside the cup there. That should make that go nice and smooth. When you install that crosswind gear, you want that stud down on the bottom. That's going to enable you to put the crosswind block on and clear the main gear when you go to put the shaft in. Next up then is the crosswind block. Again, we cleaned that out earlier. Go ahead and make sure that we have grease on the outside of it where it's going to slide on the gear, and grease on the inside of the channel, and then that goes over the stud. So you need to make sure that you're over the stud and you're under the little hold here. Once you do that, you can put the main gear in. I'm just going to put the bushing in first. The bushing's in. I'll take the main gear without the bushing, we'll put that in, we'll make sure it all meshes. Now don't turn the reel at this point because you have this set the way it needs to be, and if you turn the reel at all, you're going to pull that crosswind block up under the main gear and you're not going to be able to set the screw. Okay, I've just cleaned off the shaft, it wasn't terribly dirty. Notice that the shaft has got a D shape to it. The flat part needs to go into the crosswind block as such. We're going to go ahead and thread that through. And then you align the hole on the bottom with your crosswind block. Pull it up a little bit, find that front headed screw in here. So this reel is what I'll call a traditional design. This design has been around a lot for a long time in a lot of reels. Minor variations in terms of what the crosswind block looks like, what the crosswind gear looks like, whether you use bushings or burrings on the side of the main gear, and so on. But the design is a solid engineering design, and these reels will last a long time if you take care of it. Okay, then we're going to put the side plate back on. And make sure it snaps. If it's not snapping, don't force anything. Don't start driving screws in. You'll only break the case. And usually when it's not snapping in properly, it means that you didn't seat your bushing correctly. So take your time with this. And some folks will ask me, can we use a mechanical screwdriver? Well, this is one of those reels I certainly advise against doing that. This is a plastic-sided reel, as I can tell. It's not graphite, and plastic will break if it's over-torqued. So the problem with these mechanical screwdrivers is that they carry a lot of torque to them, and if you're not careful, you're going to split the case. If you need them, if you don't have the hand strength, then what I recommend, I'll show it here, you can drive it in a part of the way, but about there, stop. You still have a gap, and finish that last turn or two with your hand as opposed to with the screwdriver. That way you'll know that you didn't over-torque the piece. Okay, the handle should go on next, and we'll see what we did here in terms of tuning this one up. Handle screws in. And we've got a nice turning, very quiet wheel here. Okay, we'll give the bail a flip, make sure that's working the way it is. Since it is, I'm just going to put some oil on the line roller. It doesn't have a burring in there. I'll put a little bit of oil onto the two intersections where the bail sits into the rotor. And we'll come over and we'll service the spool, and then we're done with this. So a spool service, we have a clip ring here, and then we have a series of washers underneath. Look for the clip ring where it's split inside the spool. Just cleaning out some sand that happens to be here. You'll see that you have some openings here, little kind of indentations. You can fit a small screwdriver, in my case a little carpenter's awl or a pick. You just want to get behind there so that you can put pressure inward on that spring so that you can remove it from that slot. Hold on to that. That is a spring, so be careful with it. Next up, you can use, in this case I'm using my pick, pull these out. And just looking at them as I'm pulling these out, there's really no service that needs to be done here. This last one is a felt ring. The rest seem to be plastic. So if it's a felt ring, you want to put some oil on it. The plastic ones you don't have to. By the nature, a plastic one is a piece of petroleum product, byproduct or whatever. They're self-lubricating. Felt rings get oil, so make sure that there's a nice dose of oil on it. This is the way the stack came out, so we're going to put them back the same way. Up, they're all felt. So these are really loaded with the grease. So I don't need to oil these, but if they were dry, you would do that. The whole idea of the oil is to keep them dry. Put that last one in, and then we reinstall the ring. So the only thing you want to do with a ring is keep them out of those two slots, the break. So kind of pick the middle point, get the bottom of the one side in, and usually hand strength will set it in as we just did there. All right, with that done then, I just noticed I have a little bit of some dirt and gunk in there, so with the spool off, it's a good time to go ahead and take that off, clean up both of those posts, reinstall the spool now. Go for the drag knob tensioner, tighten that down, make sure that we have the drag. We do, we're nice and tight, so there we go. So that's the Shakespeare Alpha Big Water 55. Like I said, you'll usually find that on a combination, and Tony, I hope that's helped you with the way that the anti-reverse works. And for the rest of you, if you have one of these, I hope that shows you how to tune up your reel and keep it working for a long time. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you have. Subscriptions are what keeps my channel going. And I wish you a good day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.